Event organizers, get ready to level up. You're listening to the Event Academy Live podcast, where we elevate motivated event organizers. This podcast is brought to you by Fusion, all the event ticketing features and support you need for one low price. Check them out at getfusionsolutions.com. Now, it's time for your host, Jake Spurley.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Event Academy Live. I have arguably the sponsorship king with me today, all the way from across the pond over in London, the United Kingdom, Nick Addecott from Maverick Group, one of the premier sponsorship facilitators in the UK. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure, Jake. It's great to be here. Very excited.
You know, our time goes back a couple years now when you were at a previous company. And one thing I've always appreciated about Nick is that he does what he says he's going to do. And the guy is a visionary thinker. We always, just before this podcast, we were chatting up about data and how events could be using data differently and like where we see events lacking. And I always appreciate our conversations because they're always forward thinking. So I'm really excited for this episode. I know our viewers are going to be super excited to learn a thing or two about sponsorships to help them just increase their sponsorship program, their sponsorship game just a little bit more. So Nick, tell the listeners, give us a little background about you, what you would do with the Maverick Group, just so they can kind of better understand your background.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I kind of kicked off my working career after playing golf for a little bit in sponsorship. I worked for an agency for 12 years, sponsorship agency, working with some of the biggest brands and sporting events around the world. I kind of got waylaid a little bit along the line and worked for some betting companies, online betting, which, you know, again, massive players in the sponsorship market have been. There's a lot of regulatory issues going on, and I know betting's just opening up state by state in the US. So some great opportunities are going to be forthcoming there with some of those betting companies. And as you said, we met while I was at Tappet selling cashless payments and data ecosystems into venues, live events, and stadiums. And I joined Maverick Sports and Entertainment about 4 months ago, I guess now. Maverick Sports and Entertainment is part of a advertising group that was set up 20 years. We're just in our 20th year now, fundamentally as an ad agency, but over the period of time, we've added new business units in. So we have experiential agency, we have digital transformation, transcreation, we have design, brand design, everything that a full agency should offer. And then as I say, I've come in to head up our sponsorship, sports and marketing agency. Really focused two things, really. One, we have some existing clients within our portfolio, likes of DHL, who are massive players in the global sponsorship market. And another one I've been working with recently called Pendragon, who own Stratstone, Castor, and Evans Halshaw. Working with those guys on really understanding what their sponsorship strategy is, coming to them with some new ideas of how they can drive their businesses forward through sponsorship, but then also looking to bring in new brands, new sponsors in through the sports and end store, really. So very much, it's for me, full focus on talking to brands, talking to event owners, and really trying to pull the two together, really, and create some really exciting partnerships.
I want to make sure everybody understands this. Not once did Nick say gold, silver, or bronze packages. Not once. He just said, okay, we go to brands saying, hey, what's your guys' marketing strategy? What do you want to accomplish? Great. Let me go find that opportunity for you. Or I have this great opportunity for you. I think it might pair excellently with your brand. For everybody out there that is new to sponsorships or that does this package BS, that's not how the big dogs do it. Nick, educate folks that might be new to sponsorship. How do the big dogs do sponsorship? Like, walk us through the beginning stages all the way kind of to like the end of a sponsorship deal.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I as soon as I have someone talking about tiered packages or gold, silver, bronze, it's time to hang up the phone or go and actually see them and explain to them how it works. But yeah, for me, it's really about, you know, working brand side first, because, you know, there are a million properties to sell out there, whether it's first of all, whether it's a sporting stadium, a jersey patch that the MLB are just starting to go out to market with now. The properties are endless. And so for me, it's always about starting with the brand first. And the only way to do that is to go into a brand and listen and understand what their strategy is, who their target audience is, What are they trying to achieve? What is their 5-10 year growth plan? And then my job then is to go away with all that information, ask as many questions as I can, then ask some more, because you can never ask too many questions. Take that information away, and it's then is when my job really starts. And it's about me trying to create a strategy, a sponsorship strategy for them. And it won't be straight into a $5 million sponsorship property straight off. It will tend to be a journey that we take them on, especially if it's a brand that's never sponsored anything before, maybe a startup or a new business. It's about creating that journey, because we need to prove that sponsorship works and it delivers on what we're saying that it will deliver on. We probably need to get some board buy-in as well internally, which is another big thing, because you'll have either the commercial director or the CEO will be driving this, but he needs to bring everyone else in the business along with him. So it's often a better way to start. Well, let's start with this, which we think will hit some really good touch points for you, depending on what your marketing strategy is, but have laid out that 5-year plan, 10-year plan for them from day one, and say, this is where we're starting. It's a small event for maybe 20,000 people, local to where your business is. You're going to be able to do some great customer B2B engagement. Then we're going to take you into this property, which is a little bit more national. So you're going to hit more of your offices around the country potentially. Then we're going to look at something that goes a step further, and it's about laying out those steps really and getting them to understand, okay, so we can do this, not going to cost us too much money to try it, to make sure that it works, and then we can keep evaluating before we move on to the next step of the plan. So it's very much about understanding what their requirements are. Then we go away, really try and create something that we know will work incredibly well to hit their key KPIs and their milestones along the way. And then we go back and we present, and we'll have some different options, because it's not always just the one thing that fits, but that'll be very much tied into that plan that we take to them. And it's really then about getting their buy-in and getting them to understand it. So during that process, we'll take them to some other similar events, get them to understand how they work, and show them live at an event how this could work for them and how they could do it better than the current brands that are sponsoring those events.
Something interesting you said there is it's a step-by-step approach, right? Like in sponsorships, you don't just go in for the naming rights of a brand new arena right off the bat. Like, you have to take those baby steps. And I think that's one of the critical things that event organizers need to understand is, whether you're on the brand side or you're on the event organizer side, you have to take this in baby steps, right? Like if you're revamping your sponsorship program, or you're trying to, get that brand new title sponsor, like, you have to walk them through that customer journey. It's just like dating. I mean, there is a TV show now called Love at First Sight, but that's not really how a lot of business works, right? You got to date a little bit, and they're like, all right, fine, we work well together. Let's do something a little bit bigger. And that's so much what this is. You got to start small.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And then, for brands that are new into sponsorship, that's exactly the approach that you have to take. But even if there's a brand that's been in the sponsorship market for 20 years, they will have been using other agencies and working with other properties. So you still have to start at the beginning. You have to start at that first date. You have to take them flowers. You have to take them out for dinner. You have to get to know them. But more importantly, get them to know you and get them to trust you, and what you're talking to them about is real and going to help their business. So yeah, that's very much how I see it, for sure.
So to take those baby steps, you obviously have to be able to have a conversation. I feel like a lot of event organizers get hung up with, I can't even get them to respond to me. And it's like, well, step number one, you probably sent them a 1-sheet flyer that shows them your packages. That's probably why they're not responding. But more importantly, Nick, if I was an event organizer and I wanted you to potentially partner with me, like, what's the best way to not only reach out, but just to get that conversation started?
Yeah, that is the hardest bit, really, because these people aren't just hanging around on trees that you can just go and pick them off and say, great, let's start a conversation. So and like with anything in life, timing and luck play a big part in that. The right thing will land on the right person's desk just as they were looking to do so. I remember one of the brands I worked with a few years back. We're an insurance brand, and I basically got an introduction to their CMO, and I went in to see them the day after. They just had some market research done, which showed they had 0% brand awareness in the city of London, which is where they operated. So timing was great, because I said, well, funny enough, we can do something about that. So yeah, it's difficult. And, there are a lot of ways currently. A lot of people use LinkedIn for reaching out. A lot of people will use various CRM tools. We use HubSpot currently at Maverick. And those, you tend to get very sort of low return rates on those sort of reach outs. And so for me, it's always been about being out there, going to events, networking, trying to start real conversations with people in a relaxed environment. And, if you have an event, a team, stadium, whatever it is that you're trying to sell, being able to host those types of events, get people to come and feel it and see it live in a relaxed atmosphere where it's not a hard sell. Those things can work really well. But I spend probably 70% of my time out of my office, meeting people at networking events, trade shows. I was just up at the Open Golf Championship this week gone, and I think I saw 2 shots hit, because for me, there was about 100 people there that I wanted to go and say hi to, have a beer with. And it's that constant, putting yourself out there, being seen in the right places that are relevant to your event and what it is you're trying to sell. So there's nothing better in my mind than pressing the flesh and going to meet people and putting yourself out there, because the majority of emails and LinkedIn messages that go out just don't hit the spot, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And I think even just listening to some events we work with that are excellent at sponsorships, like they do it the right way. So much of it is, if you have the right sponsorship program, you're not selling much because you're giving so much value to that business. It's like, I'll pay double this because I'm getting exactly what I want in front of exactly my target customer, what that fits my ICPs. Like, it's perfect. And I think that's the big miss here is sponsorships suck to sell if you're doing them wrong. They're can be really, really, really easy if you're doing them right. And you're giving that brand exactly what they're looking for, because for them, it's like, all right, I can spend $100,000 on radio. Let's say if you're spending $100,000 on radio, I'd be a little concerned, but $100,000 on radio, or I can spend $100,000 at this specific trade show or whatever sporting event that my ideal customers are at. Like, this should be a no-brainer decision for me.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's where this goes back to that bit of being able to understand the brand and the person you're targeting. And if you haven't had the ability or the chance to have a conversation with them, you have to do your research. You have to find out what that business wants to do, where they're going, what have they done in the past, what have they sponsored. Because you're right, if you just send them a package, say this, going back to the gold, silver, bronze, this is what you get for the money. If it doesn't fit with what they're looking for, they're just going to walk away straight away before they even look at it. So it's about that understanding, and that can be gained, as I say, through researching. We will, before we do any reach outs to anybody, we'll understand exactly what they've sponsored since that business, that brand was set up, how it's worked for them, what returns it's given them, what their growth is, what are they up to in the market, and get as much information as we can before we even put an email together or have a cold call, because you need to demonstrate that you've understood who they are and what they're about, and why that's going to fit with what you're going to talk to them about. And you're right, and you focus on the deliverables, the assets that you can give them rather than the package. It's about, we identified this as one of your challenges. This is how we think our event can overcome those challenges and deliver some real. So you don't even talk about the package. There'll be a hook within your event and what they need, and that's the thing that you focus on in those early conversations.
The other thing that fascinates me is how much more money these events can make based off these tailored packages, right? It's like you could sell, I tell events, all right, make a list of absolutely everything you could possibly imagine that could have somebody's logo on it, from like an arena to, garbage cans, even like the wackiest stuff. It might be a good fit for a certain brand. You just don't know. And from there, it's like, all right, here's a list of everything that could possibly be sponsored. Now you can kind of make a package out of that. But then it's like, even if you sold everything on that list in these like gold, silver, bronze packages, I guarantee you, if you just custom tailored one package to a very specific brand, they'd be willing to pay probably double or triple what you just spent a whole bunch of work, getting all these little tiny package sponsorships in, because people are willing to pay for what they want. If you're solving their problem, they're willing to give you the bucks. And if that's their name on, like, I don't know, in flames at the beginning of a rodeo, that's what it is. If it's underneath the ice, like, they don't care. Just give people what they want. They're going to give you the money. It's mind-boggling.
100%. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And one bit of advice, I have a lot of new events, and people come to me for advice, and the first thing I say is, well, work with us and we'll we'll solve your problem for you. But a lot of them have to do it on their own for budgetary reasons. But they'll be going out and creating those gold, silver, bronze packages, and for me, it's like, if you create the package that's at the high end, exactly as you've said, that incorporates and encompasses everything that you think your event can deliver, it's much easier to get one brand to spend $1 million than 50 brands to spend 25,000. That's because it's one conversation. That conversation will take a little bit longer, but for me, it's always about exactly that. Focus on the value that you can deliver, hit those real key touch points that you believe that brand needs to address, those challenges that they need to overcome. Create that package, go and sell it once. And then, because then once you've done that and you've got your founding partner and your title sponsor, whatever it is you want to call it, your presenting sponsor, that's great. You're done. You're set. Now you can go and whatever they haven't taken or they're not using, then you can go and sell that to other people. And it's a lot easier, because you go say, well, look, our event's sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. Great. That gets you, that opens a lot of doors. That's a great door opener to go in to a drinks supplier, to a payment supplier, to crypto, whoever it is, because they want to be associated with those events that have those. If you're going in and saying, well, we haven't got any sponsors, and you're trying to get a $50,000 sponsorship deal done, it's hard. But if you get that top one first, that real key one that gives the event that sort of credibility, then it's a much easier job.
So if I'm an event, I now know how the process works from start to finish. I now know that my packages need to go in the trash. I get that. How, if I were an event that has sponsorships done in package right now, how would you advise me to revamp my sponsorship program to meet what we're talking about today? Like, what does that look like? What should they start with?
Yeah, and I think the first thing, and you touched on it a little while ago, is the event owner. You need to really understand what it is that you have, and that's people, that's space for logos, that's hospitality, B2B engagement opportunities, all of those things. But you need to really do a deep dive into the event itself and understand the value of each of those assets that you can deliver to a brand, and then look at those potential packages that you've been outselling or you're trying to sell, and just really almost identify, what does my event stand for? What is my USP in the sponsorship space? Is it I've got 100,000 people, so you've got the opportunity to engage with 100,000 people. I've got a great digital strategy where I'll be able to deliver first-party data back to that brand, so they can actually have direct, respect to data again. They can have that direct communication with the fan, the event guy. So it's really about understanding, what it is that you have to offer. What is the key thing? Is it the amount of people? Is it the TV coverage, exposure that you're going to get from a brand awareness point of view? Is it community? Is it purpose-led? It's really understanding what is the key thing, because a lot of event owners are great at running events, but you need to look inwardly and understand exactly what can my event deliver, and what is the best part of my event that I want to go out and sell and hang my hat on effectively.
Nick, you said data.
Yes.
I think we just have to talk about it.
Yep.
So from a Fusion ticket side, it's constantly this conversation of, why are you asking 0 questions to your customers? Their email address and name is a great start, but that's literally what every single ticketing platform does for you. Why are you not capturing more data? And most of the time it's like, I don't know. What do we need it for? It's like, all right, well, here's an education session. Let's go back to school for a minute. Nick, tell me the importance, and tell the viewers the importance of data in the sponsorship world.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite subjects, data, and it has 2 main sort of areas that we need to discuss. The one is really around the event owner or the rights holder being able to maximize their revenue opportunities on site. And the more you understand about your fans, your customers that are there, the more you can sell to them. And that's really what it should be about, maximize that revenue opportunity. If you have multiple events through the year, Currently, if someone buys a ticket, they might be buying tickets for their friends. You don't have any data on those people. And even if you just have, as you say, their name and email address of the ticket purchasers, that doesn't really get you very far. But by being able to set up a connected digital infrastructure, that allows you to understand what everybody's doing while they're at your venue, what they're purchasing, what time do they get there, what time are they leaving, where have they gone while they've been on site. And that information is key, really, to be able to sell them more events, but also be able to get them to consume more while they're on site, and maximize your revenue that way. The other key point, it helps you bring in better sponsors and make more and charge more money for your sponsorships. The biggest example of recent times is Spotify and Barcelona FC did a deal a few months back where Spotify had become the naming rights partner of the Nou Camp Stadium. Never had a naming partner there before. It's a huge deal. So Spotify and Barcelona are talking, and Spotify asked Barcelona, how many fans have you got globally? They said, we've got 350 million fans. Spotify said, that's awesome. We got 400 unique monthly users of Spotify. We can do something really huge here. Spotify then asked Barcelona, out of those 350 million, how many of those fans do you have the consent to communicate with? They said, yeah, it's like 1%. Just under 3.5 million of their fans. Spotify just went, okay, you know what? The value we were talking at, that's just gone down considerably, because what use is a fan if I can't speak to them and talk to them about Spotify? So that's the other key important bit, is as soon as you start as event owner to own first party data and have the ability, the consent for you and for your partners to be able to communicate, then your sponsorship properties become much more valuable. If you have a soft drink partner that wants to do some giveaways at your festival, what normally happens is they bring 20,000 bottles of their drink, people take it away, they have no idea who took it, who drank it, did they like it, did they not. If you have the data and you actually create a setup where they have to tap for it or scan something for it, who took it, you can then communicate with them, see if they liked it, and then you can start selling direct to that person. So it's a double-headed sword, really. It's that ability to maximize revenue on site from your existing customer base, but then it allows you to get better sponsorship deals done in the future as well.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. I feel like when I'm having the data conversation, I'm just going to take this clip and say, all right, just listen to what Nick has to say about this, because you hit it out of the park. It's a double-edged sword. Your sponsors are willing to give you more money because they have data. They know who's coming. It's like, hey, if you can confidently go back to a brand and say, all right, 40% are male, 60% are female, our age graphics are this, our interest groups are this, here's where they travel from, like they drink this sort of soda. I mean, you don't even have to get that granular into like soda, right? Like that's a more advanced data point, a data touch point. But even just knowing, how old are you? Where are you from? Yeah. What gender are you? Right? Because here's the thing. For the brand, they want to know, all right, not only who's showing up to the event, because are the people attending the event, do they meet our ideal target audience we want to reach? But from that, what can we learn about our own marketing going forward? If this brand activation did really, really well, and these were the demographics of people attending, maybe we need to create a marketing campaign around that towards the demographics that this brand activation went really, really well with. And
100%. A little example on that: Man City, biggest football club in the world, maybe apart from Barcelona. Their whole thing around data is understanding if fans are coming to the Addecott Stadium, their stadium in Manchester, if they're coming from North America, are they spending more money on site than ones coming from Asia? And that ability to understand demographic and spend is huge for them, because if the North Americans are coming over and not spending any money, but the Asians are, then they're just going to start marketing more to Asia, and that's their growth market for spend and investment in their fandom and their club. So it's just hugely important.
You talked about, you gave a little example there. I have on my list here, have Nick give an example of a sponsorship deal to some listeners, because I feel like you have just some great stories. And I want people to not only have all this information of how to do sponsorships, how to set it up, how to make this transformation, like how important data is, but give them like a real world example of where you went in, you executed a sponsorship. I'm sure you could tell me 1,000 different stories, but just maybe one that resonates with you that somebody can learn something from.
I'm just trying to think through which would be the best ones to do, because there have been quite a lot. I mean, but I'll do a recent one. I did this kind of gives another example of how to sell a sponsorship. So one of our existing clients at Maverick, one of the car brands that we work with, we just did a charity purpose-led partnership with the Battersea Dogs Home, one of the biggest, most loved charities in the UK. But I wanted them to do their first sports sponsorship. They hadn't done anything in sport. It's a new rebrand for them. It's a hybrid car sales where you can either go into a showroom or you can buy online. And I kind of knew the only way that we were going to get something over the line was to create a real business case with actual commercial opportunities built in the deal. Just putting their brand on a racing car wasn't going to be enough for them to get the deal done. So I worked with the team owner of the racing team and said, look, I can get these guys to sponsor it. I'm confident of that, but I need some more assets from you. I need some commerciality in there. So it just so happened that the team owner also runs an automotive business and has a requirement for vehicles. So we built into the contract the guarantee that he will purchase a certain amount of vehicles from this car seller throughout the term of the contract. And then we also looked at, he has the ability to market into 47,000 independent car garages in the UK. Well, that's a great opportunity for my brand now, or my client, to put their brand and put specific offers on car cleaning products that are going out of his shops. So it was really, trying to look at just the straightforward sponsorship and the hospitality wasn't going to work. It had to be something different. So we just looked under the hood, excuse the pun, in a motor racing sponsorship. But we looked under the hood and said, what else can we do? And we spent a lot of time with the team, the racing team, and understood their business. So not only do you have to understand the brand that's sponsoring, you have to understand yourself as the event owner, or if you're putting a third party into it, what can they give? What can they put on the table? And it worked out that it was that commercial element that really helped us get it over the line. It was one of the quickest sponsorship deals that I ever did. They normally take, 3 to 6 months to get something over the line. We did this in 3 weeks from start to finish. Yeah.
My next question was going to say, all right, so that our viewers have proper expectations. Nick, how long did the deal take you? And I was expecting you to say, it took 3 to 6 months to keep expectations. Guys, 3 weeks, it's not a reasonable expectation for most big sponsorship deals. The sponsorship king himself, yes, Nick can get them done in 3 weeks, but you would say on average, how long does a sponsorship deal take?
Yeah, it varies, but it would be somewhere between 3 to 6 months would be a normal life cycle to get that deal over the line. This one we were under time pressure because the race season started in April, so we had to get cars wrapped and get vinyl on and get the car tested and ready to race. So, but without that commercial element that we added to the deal, it just wouldn't have happened. So that was the real clincher, and it's all about understanding what is it that brand wants, what's going to be the hook that's going to get them to say yes, and that's what it was in this case. And we were very confident that it was gonna happen, and thankfully it did.
The other thing that you said there, Nick, that I think a lot of people don't get is sponsorships don't have to be monetary exchanges, right? Like there's so many things you can do with it. That commercial piece, super interesting, because we do this with Fusion tickets as well. It's like, all right, sure, we'll flip you $5,000 in a sponsorship if you pick up our ticketing platform, which, by the way, if you're an event organizer and you have a decent sized event, happy to sponsor your event if you use our ticketing system. There's my plug. But that's what a lot of brands are willing to do. It's like, sure, we'll give you money, but like, we can't do it just on a cash pay. Like, we need to be guaranteed some kind of return. And if you're an event and let's say you're working with a signage company or something, right?
Yeah.
You're already spending money on signage. Just send it with somebody else and you're going to get a sponsorship deal out of it. It's not that hard, guys.
Exactly, and you're right. And as we alluded to earlier, I came from Tapit Payments. Payments is another great example. Everyone needs payment ecosystems in their setup. Yeah, those can very much well be traded off against sponsorship. DHL, another big brand that we work with currently, they're a logistics delivery brand, so they will only do partnerships now that involve them delivering, the infrastructure and everything. So if it's F1, they deliver the stuff from one F1 to the next F1 to the next. Those are integral parts of their deals, and that does, they're getting money back from F1 and their partners because they're physically doing the work of delivering it. So those are partnerships that work incredibly well.
Yeah. Nick, as we wrap this thing up, we try to keep it 20, 30 minutes here. What's just that, if you were talking to a sponsorship newbie? Somebody's maybe new to the game, or they've been in it for a while. They've just been stuck in the package world. What's just like one thing that one little nugget you'd give them to take away that they could implement pretty easily and quickly?
Yeah, I think it's all about understanding yourself, what you're trying to sell, and understanding who would want to buy it. You know, it's like, you know, if you look at I have a 12-year-old daughter. She's constantly trying to come up with new business ideas to make money. You know, you're not going to put out a lemonade stand outside your house in the middle of winter because no one's going to come. So it's about understanding what you have to sell. What is your key? But what makes you slightly different from the event down the road or the event in the next town or the next city? What is your key thing that you have that you can deliver that will help a brand solve a problem? Understand that first, then do your research and understand which brands will fit into what it is you're trying to sell.
That's a great first step. I mean, events are so simple. You just have to listen and understand, whether it's your stakeholders, whether it's your attendees, whether it's your marketing agencies, whatever it is. Sometimes you just got to shut up and listen to what the data is telling you, what your sponsors are telling you, what your attendees want you to do. And that's just the meat and potatoes of it. Last little comment here. Nick, you said a couple weeks ago you went to a golf tournament. You said you wanted to have a beer with 100 different people. I have to ask, did you have a beer with every person? So did you have 100 different beers?
Pretty much, yeah. I'd probably said some people had
animal.
Some people I had more than one beer with. So, you know, it depended on how the conversations would go. But those, you know, for me, golf is been in my history. Yeah, I was a pro golfer when I started. So it's always got I've worked for Wilson Sporting Goods on the golf side. So it's a very special place in my heart and one that I want to keep working in. So, you know, I was out there, I sat down with all the key had a beer with all the key golf manufacturers, the Wilsons, the TaylorMades, the Callaways, Mizuno, Ping. You know, I spoke to all of the key organizations. You know, there's a lot of travel businesses in golf, like Your Golf Travel. Sat down with all those guys. And one thing that wasn't at the last Open is that there's so many more influencers now in the game of golf. Literally everywhere I looked, there was a young boy or girl with their phone doing reels and doing Instagram posts about golf, not famous people. So it's taking on a new edge. So I even spent time with the influencers as well. So it was just great opportunity to meet as many people as I could. And that's really what you need to do, I think.
You talked about golf, and you have like 20 seconds to answer. Quick shot opinion on Live Golf.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it will continue to evolve and grow. And I think the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour have to do something about it. I think they've gone into it a little bit eyes wide shut and sleepwalked into a massive issue that was bubbling up for a long time. So it ain't going anywhere. That's what I think.
That's awesome. Nick, I can't thank you enough for joining us on this episode. If you haven't learned anything about sponsorships, you've been under a rock for the past half hour. You're literally listening it from a guy that's been in the industry for, I'm going to say 20 plus years. He only looks like he's 34, but he's been doing this thing for a while. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, talking all things sponsorship. And I feel like there might need to be another episode just on data sometime.
I'd be happy to do that, and I think we definitely need one on data for sure.
Sounds good. Everybody, thank you again for listening to this episode of Event Academy Live. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Event Academy Live podcast.
This show is powered by Fusion.
Event solutions for the modern event organizer. Don't forget to like, rate, and review. We hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, keep leveling up, fellow event organizers.